Hi, guys, and welcome back to Too Much. I'm your host, Emma Paige. But today, since Halloween is only 3 days away, I am an accountant. Why, you may ask? Because I come with receipts. Oh, boy. It's not as fun when you're not talking to someone else, telling them what your costume is. Thank you, Remy, for laughing. Happy Halloween, guys. 2 weeks ago was not feeling well, and I know I kind of said that on Instagram, but I released one of my old guest episodes that I had recorded back in May that I needed to release, so it was fine that I did it. But there was no spooky story last week. It actually worked out for the best because that meant this week, which is the closest to Halloween, is the Halloween episode, which is something that I'm going to make an annual thing. You guys are going to fucking look forward to it all year round if you're a horror freak or geek like myself. But I love to dress up for Halloween. I will be a slut this Halloween, on Halloween when I go out. But for the podcast, I will forever be something funny. And originally I was trying to go through all of the things that I'm about. And I was like, oh, accountability, accountant, Voltaire, hair. That was a Princess Diaries reference. But accountant, accountability. So that's what I was going for. And then when I was getting together a costume at home, I was like, oh my fucking God. You know what else accountants have? They have fucking receipts. And so do I. So I hope you guys are watching this because that was funny. Anyways, a couple updates. I am having my Halloween party this Thursday, the 30th. I have opened it up to the audience. I know a bunch of you have already RSVP'd, so thank you so much. I came in to hang out with you. Full disclosure, it's not going to be a one-on-one hang. I would love to say hello. I just want to be clear. I'm going to be chicken with my head cut off all night, saying hello to everyone. So I'm sorry that I won't be able to spend so much time with you. I promise I will do another IRL event soon where we can all really get to know each other. But really excited to have those of you who are joining. Costumes are required also if you're coming because clearly I love a costume. Second thing, we hit a motherfucking 1K, people. Wait, not one. That's wrong. 100K. Wow. That's exciting. 1,000. We hit 100,000 followers on Instagram. Let's fucking go. Thank you, guys. I'm just so fucking grateful and thankful. To put it into perspective, when I left Unhinged, we had the podcast for 19 months and we only got to 92,000 on Instagram. And in under 9 months, actually, wow, today is my 9 month. In under 9 months, so this happened last week, I hit 100K on Instagram. That is a huge accomplishment. So pat on my back. A couple people wrote in asking how I did it, what my advice is. And honestly, it's just been consistency. It's been fucking relentlessness. And it's been just being a psychopath. And you know what? Psychopaths win. They do. Name of the episode, Psychopaths Win. So yeah, thank you guys so much for following. Let's keep going. Oddly enough, I have a really big Facebook audience too. I think I'm at 100K there too. And then TikTok is almost at 300K. So this is a big little family we've created here. And I appreciate every single one of you. Instagram feels a bit more intimate, if I will say, because I do feel it's a community. I don't even follow people on TikTok, but I know a lot of people on TikTok. And I feel that's kind of the culture there. You don't always have to follow people. They're going to end up on your algorithm anyway. Instagram is a community. You guys DM me all the time. You comment, we talk. I know a lot of your names. I have talked a lot of you through breakups. The other day, I shouldn't laugh, but the other day, someone wrote in after I answered her Q&A, let me know that her and her ex-boyfriend were working it out. And then she actually followed up with me this weekend and let me know that they did call it quits. And I gave her my condolences and said, say sayonara to that fucker. You know, should have listened to me in the episode. Just kidding. Anyways, those are the only updates. Substack is still going strong. If you have not gotten the memo already, I am doing side notes every single week. So those launch around the same time as the episode. You can read those before watching the episode or listening to the episode. And it gives you like more insight to the episode, just like my thoughts. It's kind of like funny commentary on the episode. So subscribe to the Substack. The side notes are free, so you can subscribe for free, but then like all the other content is paid. But it's only $5 a month. Support your girl. Anyways, that's it. Let's get into today's episode, shall we? I'm a horror freak. Hi, my name is Emma, and I am a horror freak. It's not lost on me that that is really weird. I've always been obsessed with horror movies my whole life. Like, I think starting in second or third grade, every single birthday party I ever had was always like a slumber party birthday, and we always watched a scary movie. So basically, I'm responsible for traumatizing like half of the 2012 class of Somers High School. So sorry. But it stuck with me, and I've just always been a horror movie fan. I just realized it sounds like I'm saying horror. And it's probably going to sound that way the entire episode, but I don't care. I'm saying horror. So, always been a horror movie fan. God. And I never really questioned it until I started questioning every single thing in my life, which is the point I'm at now. Because as you know, I always question why the fuck. So, my question today that we are unpacking is, why the fuck are people so obsessed with horror movies, including myself? But that's not the only thing we're going to do in this episode. That, in fact, is actually just going to be the beginning part of the episode, probably the next 10 or so minutes. And then you guys finally understood the fucking assignment and you sent me your horror stories. I'm really going to try hard to say horror. Anyways, I don't know what's wrong with me. I think this is like the first time I've really spoken today. So it's coming out a little loopy. But here we are. So I told the first scary story in the Spooky Season Scary Story series on TikTok. It went fucking viral. And in that, I said, send in your stories. And then everyone did. So I have a shit ton. I'm going to get through as many as I can. I didn't really read any of them because I wanted it to be like really scary for me too. But I obviously like glanced through to make sure they weren't like spammy, weird shit. Like some people sent pictures and I was afraid it was going to be a dick pic, but thankfully it wasn't. So going to go down the rabbit hole of why people are into horror movies, why I'm into them, psychologically, like why, and then get into the stories. So let's go down this fucking rabbit hole. So first off, just to give us a starting point, this eagerness for humans to seek horror, gore, anxiety, fear, all these negative emotions, disgust, it's actually called the paradox of horror. I shouldn't have said how hard it is to say that word in the beginning of this episode because now I can't fucking stop thinking about it. Oh my God. Sorry if I've ruined it for you guys too. But anyways, this paradox has confused philosophers and psychologists for centuries because this is not a new thing. People like scary shit. It's not just me. That's really the point of this episode, is to prove that it's not just me, that I'm not alone. So I got a lot of my information today from this doctor, Dr. Peter Attia. He wrote a great article on this and it provides a lot of context and a lot of information from other doctors and people with PhDs. I also got a lot from ChatGPT. So when I reference these studies, it's not just me bullshitting. This is factual. But basically, this article that Peter Attia wrote, Dr. Peter Attia wrote, explains that people who have higher anxiety actually find more enjoyment in horror movies than people with less anxiety, which seems counterintuitive because you would think people who are super anxious like don't want to see horror movies, but that is not the case. It's actually found to alleviate the symptoms. So a lot of people, myself included, live in a chronic state of fight or flight. Their nervous system is always overactivated by default. That is just like their resting situation. So this is where it gets interesting. On a subconscious level, they often crave and seek outlets where that activation is actually normal and expected. So it creates a sense of familiarity. They're always in a state of fight or flight. So it's like, oh, let me put on a little teen scream, a little horror flick, because I'll feel at home, because these are my people. They're freaking the fuck out. I'm always freaking out. We are one. Because basically, a horror movie offers a structured and controlled opportunity to engage the fear response, because everything is external. It's temporary. It's on the screen. It's not real, but you're still able to experience the anxiety and the suspense. It's giving us a predictable and controlled way to amplify our heart rate and all of the emotions that are associated with fear, but without the real world risk. And for someone whose baseline is nervous system activated, like always on edge, or just like I said, in that state of fight or flight, someone with high cortisol levels, the horror movie just feels less foreign. The chaos feels normal. It's aligning with their consistent mentality. And typically it is subconscious. It's not like, oh, Ed Gein, my people. Like, that's not what it is. It's just like how you would turn on, or whoever, maybe you like horror movies, so maybe I'm not talking to you, but it's how someone would turn on reality TV because they're like, oh, I could just shut my brain off and watch this. I personally cannot watch reality TV. I have never watched a Real Housewife episode, a Bachelor episode, Summer House, nothing. Never watched a single episode of reality TV because I can't stand it. And it just is, it's not comforting to me. However, a horror movie is, and I don't know why. Like, I can go to sleep after a horror movie. Well, I do know why. This is why. Because I am always in a state of fight or flight. I am constantly like ready to fight or fly. So when I put on a horror movie, it's almost like it matches my energy and it gets me to a place of an equilibrium. It's wild. And for someone like myself who feels that this fight or flight state that I'm constantly in is inherent and it's just kind of who I am, when I put on a horror movie and I'm activating that fear, it feels more like a choice. It becomes about control rather than the unavoidable misery that happens in everyday life that is just out of our control. This is me going to the horror section on, I was going to say Netflix, but it's really hard to search on there, horror movies. I don't think they have categories like that. But like everywhere else, it's me going and choosing it and being like, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to activate my heart rate, and everything's going to be copacetic. So when I read this, honestly, like my brain exploded. And I think I looked it up maybe a year or two ago because I was really interested. I was like, why the fuck do I like horror movies so much? Like, actually, what is wrong with me? Because it was also like one of those things that I would always tell people on first dates because I thought it was a fun fact. But then people were like, are you a serial killer? Do you want to wear my skin? Am I going to wake up dead in a body bag or in a suitcase? They have wheels. And I would be like, no, I'm sorry. Is this weird? Like, I didn't think this was weird. And so basically everyone else told me it was weird. And then I was like, what's wrong with me? But it's interesting because I get asked quite often how I'm so confident being by myself and how I'm so okay with being alone and facing rejection and breakups, and how do I, move on so quickly? And my answer is always exposure therapy. I just expose myself to heartache, to breakups, to loss, to loneliness so often that I know I can survive it. So it makes it easier for the next time it happens. I'm like, whatever. This is a walk in the park considering the shit I've been through. So research suggests that watching horror movies can actually serve as mini exposure or simulation of threat, where one survives. And it's you. And through this survival, through you getting to the end of the movie and you surviving all the shit that the actors went through, the characters went through, it creates a sense of mastery. Another study in 2018, which I can put in the episode notes like what the study was. I do have it, but I'm just not going to say it, although it would have been shorter to say it than give this explanation, but whatever. In a study in 2018, they did find that a key part of the appeal of watching horror movies is the ability to feel in control of your fears. Making it through a movie of a serial killer can actually give you the feeling of surviving, even though you were never in danger and it really wasn't you. So for someone whose real life threat systems are always active, so anxiety, vigilance, fight or flight, what watching a horror movie provides is artificial threat, known ending, you survive. Therefore, reinforcing the narrative of I can survive fear. I can survive uncertainty. It's like putting yourself through a drill. The alarm goes off, you jump, you peek under the bed, there's a monster, you kill the monster or something happens, you survive, lights up, credit rolls, your nervous system has established it can survive. It got to do its job and it came out fine. It's literally exposure therapy. It's creating a safe space to practice resilience, whether you know that it's happening or not. But let me be so clear, this does not mean that horror movies are therapeutic for everyone. It is not a solve. It is not something that I would prescribe, because I'm not a doctor, just an accountant, anyone with anxiety to do. I would consult a professional first. But if this is you who loves horror movies and has always been like, why? Or maybe you never even considered it, but this is all ringing some bells. Here's your explanation. It all really depends on everyone's individual differences, on their personality, what their baseline anxiety is, all of that. There are typically about like 6 categories of people that horror movie lovers fall under, and that is sensation seekers. So that's the adrenaline junkie. The emotion regulators. So those are the people who are using fear to manage their anxiety. The morbidly curious. And those are people who are just really into dark shit, which I also am, by the way. The empathetically detached, and these are the people who can detach fiction, the movies, from real suffering. And then there's the trauma survivors, or anxious individuals who actually find safety in this controlled chaos, because they are the ones that find it subconsciously familiar because of that fight or flight. And then finally, we have the cognitive reappraisers, who are people who are just geeking out on this shit, and they like to see how people psychologically respond to fear and threats and all of that. So again, this is not for everyone, but if you are a horror movie, spooky season, scary seeker buff like myself, it's quite interesting. And it explains a lot, because I wouldn't necessarily say I'm an anxious person, but I'm definitely like always here. Like always on, always vigilant, always, just in fight or flight. So it makes sense for me that is my safe space, is when people are getting slaughtered on screen, to be clear. And side note, there was a 2020 study done from the Recreational Fear Lab at a university in Denmark that found people who frequently watch horror movies have better coping skills and lower stress reactivity in real life. And it's possibly because they practice regulating their fear in controlled doses. I will say the lower stress reactivity is probably not me, but the coping skills, definitely me. I can self-soothe the shit out of myself better than the best of them. You guys know I love to talk about neural pathways. Well, fun fact, studies show that when you take shrooms at a subhallucinogenic level, the psilocybin actually creates new neural networks in your brain that boost your mood, your focus, your creativity, your productivity, and can help with your mental clarity. And that is exactly why I started microdosing with Schedule 35. I am a one-man show with this podcast, so always staying on top of everything and always being on creatively can sometimes be a challenge. I can admit that. But working Schedule 35 into my daily routine has been completely game-changing. Their vegan capsules are accurately dosed to give me the exact edge I need, even on my craziest days, without the hallucinogenic effects. And if you don't want the vegan capsules, you can do chocolates, gummies, or even shroom-infused tea. Each order ships discreetly and comes with a microdosing regimen that gives you all the education you need to get started and keeps you on track. Get 15% off all orders with code TOOMUCH at schedule35.co. That's 15% off at schedule35.co with code TOOMUCH. Happy microdosing. So that's all on fear and loving horror movies. Now, it's time for some spooky stories as part of the Spooky Season Scary Stories series. Dun, dun, dun. Let me grab my receipts. Not those. All right, guys. I got the laptop out, and you know when that happens, it means business. Now I really look like an accountant. This first one is called My Haunting. Let me say that again. I gotta put my spooky voice on. This first story is called My Haunting. I sound like the chicks from SNL with sweaty balls. Okay. Hello. My name is P, and I've got a story for you. The story might be long, but I swear it's worth it. I'm gonna stop laughing, I promise. Okay. I used to live in this old house built back in 1920. From the very beginning, it felt empty. There were always sounds such as loud bangs in the middle of the day, footsteps down the stairs, and every single morning at exactly 7:30, I'd hear a door open. The strange part? That door didn't exist anymore. At the time, I had just gotten a new roommate. She told me she was into witchcraft, just starting to explore it. I didn't mind, but I asked her to please not practice it in the house. I wanted to keep the energy peaceful. She agreed, but within 2 months, everything between us turned tense, almost volatile. Eventually, she bought out her lease and moved out. I thought that would be the end of it. It wasn't. When I went to clean her room, I noticed something strange. This thick, putrid smell that hit you the moment you stepped inside. But if you stood in the doorway, you couldn't smell it at all. It was like the air itself changed once you crossed that threshold. I scrubbed, painted, deodorized, left the windows open for a month. Nothing touched it. The smell clung to that room for months. Around the same time, things started happening to me. Every night, without fail, I'd wake up in sleep paralysis. Frozen, panicked. I couldn't move, couldn't speak. And there, in the darkness, I'd see him. A tall, shadowy figure just watching me. Some nights, he stood in the corner. Other nights, he lurked in my closet. I never knew where he would be next. Friends stopped staying over. They'd wake up from nightmares or say they saw figures move down the hallway. Even during the day, the house was alive with chaos. Brooms falling, lights flickering, objects moving on their own. It felt like the spirits in that house were restless, angry, like something darker had stirred them up. My friend and I tried everything to cleanse the space. Sage, salt, prayers, you name it. But whatever was there wasn't leaving. Then one night, something happened. I was sitting on the couch, zoning out while my friend was in the shower, and out of nowhere, there was a deafening bang, like something had slammed into the walls of the house. A rush of cold air swept through the room, and I got chills all over. A second later, I heard my friend scream. She said she'd watched a shampoo bottle fly across the shower as if someone had thrown it, and then silence. It was like the whole house had exhaled. The heaviness lifted. The air felt brighter. We went to check the old bedroom, and the smell was completely gone. I can't explain it, but I believe whatever dark entity had been tormenting us, maybe even tormenting the other spirits there, was finally gone. After that night, my sleep paralysis stopped. The nightmares ended. And for the first time in months, the house felt like a home again. The end. Ooh, spooky. That's scary. I'm good at that, I think. Okay. Thank you so much for writing in. That was like spooky. That was the first time I read it, actually. I didn't read that one the entire way through the first time. And I was like sweating a little bit. I didn't know where that was going to go. That was spooky. The smell is really scary. I talked about this 2 episodes ago when I lived in a haunted apartment, and there was a smell isolated in like little spots. And it was the most bizarre thing. And it just made me think that there was like a person or ghost of a person there. Crazy. Okay, next one. This one is a shorter one, but what's really scary about this one is the visual. She sent a video. This one was also not written the way the last one was. It's not theatrical. So I'm just going to read it more in this girl's tone of voice. Hi. Spooky, scary story here. I didn't actually record this video, but I worked in this restaurant for years and have heard many stories of bartenders often saying they would hear their name being called at the end of the night when they were cleaning up. Or sometimes they would hear this old metal door rattle like someone was trying to open it. This video shows a figure coming out of the corner of the bar. I'm now going to put the video she included on the screen. So watch the YouTube, people. This video shows a figure coming out of the corner of the bar. The far right where the figure exits at the end is where the door is located. I will say I was sitting at the bar one night after my shift in one of those seats that you can see in the video at the end of the bar. And you know when someone tries to trick you by walking past you and tapping you on the opposite shoulder? I felt it. I looked both ways and no one was there. Then, when this happened, you can see that the figure walks past that exact spot. It may be a coincidence, but it may not be. The craziest part of all is the manager that caught this just so happened to look up at the TV in the office that showed all the cameras at this very moment, and she recorded the video here. I removed the sound due to cursing. LOL. It's really spooky, guys. It's like clearly a fucking ghost. So watch the video, go to the YouTube. Thank you so much for writing in. I love that. I feel like that was a friendly ghost. Definitely not like the last one. Okay. Ooh, this, oh my God, I just started sweating. Woo! Okay. This one is longer. No receipts. No receipts, people. I need receipts. Otherwise, it's not true. Okay. This one, I believe, is also written in a spooky way. So, spooky voice activated. This story is called He Watches When You Sleep. Oh, dear Emma. Don't say my name. Okay. You asked for spooky, and I have something borderline terrifying. Please feel free to edit this to make it shorter if you decide to share it. Nope. We're doing the whole damn thing. Okay. Throughout my life, I've always been curious and a little sensitive to whatever lies beyond the veil. Oh my God, I totally just started rewatching Stranger Things, and they just did an episode on Beyond the Veil. I was living in a rural Canadian town at the time and had just broken up with the boy I'd been living with. I set out on the journey of finding a new apartment. Now, being a small town, my options were limited, especially considering I had a large dog. I find an apartment that's pet-friendly and available immediately, so of course, I'm excited to go view it. I arrive and the property manager takes me to a basement 2-bedroom unit. It's an older building, so there's some quirks, but nothing too out of the ordinary. She shows me around and I walk into the bathroom. The mirror above the sink is situated directly across from the door, which happens to be across the hall from the second bedroom. So, oh God, I see where this is going. So, oh my God, I'm scared. I have not read this one. So if you're looking in the mirror, you can see right into the second bedroom behind you. I look around and happen to catch a glance in the mirror. I suddenly had this unnerving feeling that someone was in the spare room door looking directly at me. It sends a shiver down my spine, but I'm also a paranoid person, so I chalk it up to being nervous in a new place. I wander into the second bedroom where it immediately feels cold and unwelcoming. It almost feels detached from the rest of the unit, but it's fall and it's an old building, so maybe there's just a draft. The property manager is lovely and extremely accommodating, so even though the place feels a little odd, I can't spend another day living with my ex, and I decide to take it. I move in, and I'm so excited to have a space of my own and a fresh start. I obviously moved my things into the first bedroom and just have the second bedroom as storage space. I can't get rid of this eerie feeling that someone is always in the reflection of the bathroom mirror. But I leave the door closed at all times and smudge regularly, and it seems to ward off the bad energy. Googling what smudge means. What does smudge mean? Okay, using a smudge, it's in phasmophobia. I believe that probably has something to do with like phantoms, like phas. I don't know. Refers to using a smudge stick to temporarily stop the ghost from hunting or attacking. It prevents the ghost from starting a hunt for a set period with a duration depending on the ghost type, 60 to 90 seconds, 180 seconds for a spirit. That doesn't seem effective. Anyways, continuing on. She's smudging. Fast forward 6 months, I've started seeing someone new who is great, and then COVID happens. He's a med student in a city a few hours away, and when classes move to online, he decides to move home and ultimately ends up staying with me rather than his parents. Things are going great, and I decide to also get a short-term roommate. She needs a furnished room as she's just in town for... Fuck me. The spooky voice really strains ya. She needs a furnished room as she's just in town for work, so I decided to spoil myself and buy new bedroom furniture. In this set, there is a long dresser with a massive mirror attached. Being an old apartment, my room is average size, so the only logical place to put this is at the end of my bed. My roommate moves in, and things get weird. I've always been a vivid dreamer, but I start having the most bizarre, vivid nightmares where I'm seeing unfamiliar faces and can describe them down to the wrinkle. If you know anything about the way the brain works, your brain cannot physically make up random faces. It just can't. So this puzzles me. But I'm just a girl. So I shook it off. Girl, that's not an excuse. What the fuck? Sorry. Shouldn't have commentary in the beginning. I'll save that for the end. But also that's true about the faces. Anyways. It's a long story. I gotta break it up. My dog is not allowed... Spooky voice, back on. My dog is not allowed on the furniture, so I'd always close all the doors when I'd leave. And it started becoming a habit that I'd come home and the doors would all be open. No one else had been there as my roommate worked extremely long days and my boyfriend also had his summer job. I started getting frustrated that something was going on. My boyfriend, being a science guy, would always have some explanation, whether it was my dog leaning on the doors to open them or I'd simply forgotten to close them. One night, I'm home alone and my dog starts acting extremely strange. He's running around the apartment as if he's being chased by something. I decide to peek around the hall and he's staring up at the front door, crouched like he's ready to play, but waiting for someone to throw a ball. I'm immediately freaked out. I know better at this point that this is not just a coincidence. I decide to open my windows and smudge. I go to light my sage bundle and the thing lights up like a firecracker, spitting burnt chunks at me, and the flame is going crazy and then it goes out just like that. Something's not right. And I just pissed whatever that something is off. I plead with my boyfriend that something's not right and he continues to justify everything. My dog was chasing a fly. The sage was too dry. At this point, I'm not sleeping great, and I randomly one morning find myself asking my roommate how she's been sleeping. Remember, she's in the creepy spare room. She goes on to tell me how she hasn't dreamt since she was a child, and she's had continuous bad dreams since being there. Later that day, my boyfriend and I had gone out for the day. He'd made our bed and placed my pink plush blanket across it like he always did and shut all the doors in the house. A few hours later, we come home to all the doors open. I look at him and he looks at me and says nothing. He walks into the house acting like it's normal until I hear, "What the fuck?" from our bedroom. I walk in and I look at what he's staring at. There, in my pink plush blanket, is a handprint. Too big to be mine and too small to be his. The worst part was that it was positioned as if someone had crawled out from under the bed and leveraged themselves on the bed to pull themselves up. At this point, my boyfriend is now convinced someone has a key to my apartment and is messing with us, so we get the locks changed. The air in the apartment is heavy now, and I constantly feel like someone is watching me. It's hard to sleep alone. My dog is consistently doing weird things. It's just a lot. Later that week, I'm laying in bed reading, and my boyfriend is in the living room working on his computer when I hear something hit the ground in the kitchen. I get up and go to investigate. I ask him what it was, and he just shrugs. As I look around the kitchen, I notice the loaf of bread that was sitting on the fridge was now laying across the kitchen on the floor. I point it out to him and he says, "Maybe it just fell off. It's not that big of a deal." Gaslighting. I put it back, making sure it can't fall again, and go back to reading. 10 minutes later, I hear the same noise, except a little louder this time. I get up and see my boyfriend, pale-faced, looking at the loaf of bread that was now in the dining room. It had somehow made its way from the furthest part of our kitchen to the furthest part of our dining room. He said nothing. After this, things had a tendency to move around the apartment. Things I knew I'd put certain places would either go missing or be somewhere completely bizarre. The nightmares worsened, and I started to feel a presence. We'd try smudging numerous times. I'd even said a few prayers here and there, and it just went on. A week after the bread incident, I'm laying in bed reading, and my boyfriend is doing something in the bathroom when I hear him call out, "What are you doing?" Confused, I respond, "Reading." He then pops his head out into our room and asks, "This whole time?" Confused, I reply, "Yes." He looks equally confused but does not elaborate. We go to sleep and I'm having another vivid dream. The same as usual, I'm walking through this house and there's people and faces and things, and I know I shouldn't be there, but it's like I'm looking for something. Suddenly, I'm shaken out of my sleep, and my boyfriend is freaking out, yelling, "You didn't hear me yelling at you to wake up? How didn't you hear me?" I'm beyond confused, and I ask him what his issue is. This man goes on to tell me someone or something was standing in the corner of our room, and when he realized it was there, the impossibly tall black figure walked over and grabbed him by the throat and started choking him and holding him down. But then it just disappeared. I've never seen him so terrified, and as a man of science, he guaranteed me it was not sleep paralysis. The next morning, I'm shaken up, getting ready to head to work, and I receive a text from my boyfriend explaining that the night before, when he asked what I'd been doing, he'd seen me walk past the bathroom, and when I responded from the bedroom, he realized it couldn't have been me. Obviously, I'm terrified, so I gather my things to get the fuck out of that house, and as I'm leaving, I catch a glance in the mirror at the end of my bed and freeze. Although nothing's there, I can't help but feel like I caught someone watching me. I leave and head to work, telling my now invested in the haunted apartment coworker about the previous night's events. She goes quiet for a second, and then it's as if a light bulb goes off. And she looks me dead in the face and explains how mirrors can be portals and tells me all of the lore. Suddenly it all makes sense, and I quickly text my boyfriend. We pick up a sweetgrass bundle and go back to the apartment. I look at him and intuitively tell him he needs to take my dog for a walk, and I have to be the one to do this. He leaves, and the apartment fills with dread and something angrier. I open all of the windows, say a quick prayer, and start to smudge. Out loud, I'm telling whatever it is there that it's not welcome. It needs to leave. I smudge the bathroom mirror, the large mirror in the living room, and then I brave the mirror in my bedroom. I suddenly feel this overwhelming blanket of fear, and it's like I can't breathe. But I tough through it, and I look directly into the mirror, smudging the entire thing, smudging myself, the corner where it watched us sleep, and finally I sit there on the bed with the sweetgrass smoking and order it to leave. A few moments pass, and suddenly I feel the breeze from my window, and the air is breathable again. I close the windows, salt the windowsills, and that mirror was removed and put into storage. Everything stopped, and that was it. The apartment was peaceful again. That was fucking terrifying. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for writing in that story. That was cuckoo bananas. Also, like, my brain the entire time was like, this gaslighting motherfucker needs to believe his girlfriend. Stop rushing everything off. But I get it, he's a man of science. Also, that is a thing. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of this, but it's impossible to create a face in your dream. So if you see a face, you've either walked past the person on the street or you know them or you met them once or whatever it is, but you physically cannot create a new face in your dream. It's like not possible. So if you see faces and you don't know who it is, maybe it's a ghost. Okay, guys, this is the last one. This person wrote into me on Instagram. I used to be a cheer coach a couple of years ago, and we traveled to a different state for competition. We stayed in an older hotel, but I thought nothing of it. We shared a suite with one of the other cheer coaches and her husband. After the competition was over, it was getting super late, and the couple that was staying with us at the hotel decided to go ahead and drive back home that night, where my husband and I decided to stay one more night at the hotel. We stayed in the exact room we were staying in the past couple of nights. Everything was great. We loved the hotel, but something happened to my husband that night. We got back to the room after dinner and got in bed. I immediately fell asleep and did not wake up until the next morning. My husband, on the other hand, woke up 3 different times to a tall, male-like black shadow. First, he woke up to the tall shadow sitting on my side of the bed, right on my feet, facing away from my husband. He rubbed his eyes a couple of times, thinking it was just something he was imagining, but the shadow was still there. He was staring at the figure for what seemed like forever to him, before he decided to just try and go back to sleep. He fell back asleep, but was woken again. This time, the shadow moved. The shadow was now in the bed across from us, laying on its side with its arm propped up, holding its head. My husband looked over and saw the shadow's glowing eyes. Being so stunned, he turned over and prayed for the shadow to go away. As we are not very religious people, he just wanted the shadow to leave us alone. He fell back asleep and was woken again, but the shadow was standing and facing at the window that was in our room. My husband blinked and the shadow was gone. He stayed up for a minute to realize what had just happened and decided to fall back asleep once more. He was then woken up by me as it was later the next day. We were up and ready to hit the road back home. My husband did not mention anything to me until we were out of the state and proceeded to tell me everything he saw. I was in shock and felt horrible for him not waking me up to tell me we needed to get out of there. But since it was so late and we were both so tired from the competition, he knew it wasn't a good idea for us to be driving back home and just wanted us to be safe. The story does not stop there. We get home, and for the next week, everything was okay. We were not married at the time and still living with our parents. And a couple of weeks later, my husband was woken by a black shadow standing in front of him in his room. He knew it was the same black shadow. He was staring at the shadow for what felt like forever until he stated to the shadow to leave him alone in the name of Jesus Christ. My husband blinked and the shadow was gone. He went back to sleep and was not woken again until the next morning. Side note, my husband wears a gold chain that is custom sized just for him. He could not fit the necklace around his head to take the necklace off. It had to be taken off by pliers or using a specific tool. He never took this necklace off. But when he woke up the next morning, he reached over to his phone, but instead touched his necklace that was sitting in a perfect pile and still together. And the necklace wasn't broken. He looked in his phone camera to look at himself and saw no red mark on his face or on his neck, thinking he tried to take it off in his sleep. It was still perfectly together. Since then, he has not seen another shadow and has not witnessed anything ever again. Knock on wood. Hope you loved our story. Let me know if you have any questions. Thanks. Jesus, what is with all of these spooky black shadowy figures? Oh, my Lanta. All right, well, I'm not sleeping tonight. I don't know about you guys, but that's all the time we got. I hope you all have a wonderful, spooky, terrifying, horrifying Halloween. And feel free to send more stories. I love stories, all stories. Send receipts. We like receipts here. That's it. Happy Halloween, and I will see you next week.